Hello there. Once again, it is time to take another revealing peek back into history.
What famous date shall I set it to today?
Once again, it's time for Throwback Thursday, a second chance to look at some truly awful podcasts. No, wait, a second chance to see how far Vicis Interimo has come over the last 8 years. New episodes will be released pretty much weekly, but Thursdays I've reserved for throwbacks to see how far we've come. A lot of the information on here no longer applies, whether that be businesses or links that may not work anymore, so be advised of that. But again, I want to thank the patrons that we have at this time, though they may not have been here the first time these episodes were recorded. I am thanking them again because they're helping us move forward with our new episodes. And those are patrons such as At Lonely Bob, Big Al V, and Goldafish. In the meantime, I hope that you enjoy what you hear.
Today to tell you that too long has mankind in its infinite arrogance believed itself to be the masters of this earth. Science, technology, knowledge, these things mean nothing. But I'm here, friends, to tell you today that there is only one Lord of this world, and his name, friends, is Great Cthulhu. Someday, brothers and sisters, when the stars are right, Great Cthulhu is coming home.
Welcome to 30 Minutes to Kill. Hi, and welcome to Vicis Interimo, episode, well, let's see, this is going to be episode 20.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think so.
Doesn't really count since like 4 or 5 of those were actually horophilia interviews, but whatever. It's all good.
Yeah, they still count.
Okay. We actually you and I need to sit down, and maybe we should do that sometime soon here. And I was going to ask you the same 5 questions I ask everybody that's been on the podcast so far.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be interesting.
Could be. Could also be a drag.
It could be. You'll just have to come up with better answers. We'll keep recording until you get it. Anyhow.
Nice, thanks.
Moving right along. There's really not too much to cover for our late arrest segment, is there? Do you have anything that needed to be touched up? Actually, one minor thing. I think there was maybe a misquote at the end of the last episode.
I hope it was you, not me.
No, I think you said, was it Dominion or Domination? What was the quote? You said that her line...
Oh, you were saying that because then, because I said I believe it was Dominion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So...
It was something along those lines.
Minor faux pas, but anybody listening there that's seen the movie has...
Well, I wasn't trying to do an exact quote.
I was
just saying that, the girl's feelings on it was, hey, it's all about, basically it's our planet now, so they're going to have to get off. So that was the gist. But yes, Dominion was the word that she actually used in the movie.
Okay. Well, that's about it, and there really isn't too much. We did get a couple of emails or a couple of messages from a couple of our regulars, both Jason from Horophilia and Stan. And one of the comments that Stan made was he was thinking of From Beyond as being a bit of a documentary piece. That was funny. But that was kind of an in-joke. I'm trying to remember. I think Stan is the guy that introduced me to Reanimator the first time. I saw it. I think he had already seen it and said, hey, you got to see this. But I was already into H.P. Lovecraft from an earlier, from before I got out here and stuff, from a relatively early age, 15, 16, whatever. So anyhow, tonight's movie is From Beyond. It's the 1986 version from Stuart Gordon. And is there another version? I don't think there is. But Stuart,
I don't think so.
Now, Brian Usna and, of course, Jeffrey Combs is in there, Barbara Crampton, all the regulars, or at least some of the regulars. Really quick, I was going to ask you, because this is generally a question that I ask everybody. A question that I like to ask everybody that I come in contact with is, how did you first come across the writings of H.P. Lovecraft? Or was it the movies that you saw first? Or how did you first become aware of him?
No, I believe that I ran into a couple of his short stories in a book years ago. I mean, well before I ran into the movies. I was always a Poe fan, and I was probably in junior high, and ran into a few of his stories. They were kind of a hard read for me at the time. I mean, not hard to read, hard for me to get interested in.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that quite right, because I've read everything I could get my hands on. I've just always been an avid reader. But if you've read any of his stuff, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how old I was, but I believe I was in junior high. But so yeah, I was very aware of, the name H.P. Lovecraft, and I knew what kinds of stories he wrote. I got through a couple of them, I think, but yeah, the way that they're written, it was a little hard for me to get into at the time. But anyway, in high school, I got very much into horror movies, and kept seeing his name, H.P. Lovecraft's whatever, fill in the blank, which, they're never quite, they're very loosely based on his stories.
Right.
But anyway, so I was like, oh, it's the author. Yeah, I'm familiar with that author.
Okay. I actually got into H.P. Lovecraft because of a friend of mine picking up the role-playing game, or at least looking at it and saying, hey, I think this is something that you would enjoy. And I got a hold of one of the books. I looked at it and flipped through there. And it sounds
Cthulhu, or
yeah, the Call of Cthulhu game.
Okay.
And it sounds ridiculous, but there was one image in there that captured my imagination, and it was a man sitting in an easy chair reading a book, and there's a hand coming out of the book strangling him. And for whatever reason, that just
sounds about right.
Yeah, so I'm like, wow, that's cool. What's going on there? And whatever. So I I got into the games and stuff, and that's how I got into his readings. So anyhow, if you haven't gathered it, you should by now. From Beyond is the movie that we're going to do for tonight's review. Vicis Interimo, proud member of the Penny Cult network of podcasts. Check out pennycult.com for such podcasts as Obscure 80s Rewind, Wrecking Crew Radio, Slugcast, Action Attraction, Fan Kids, Dark Hours, WWED Radio, Movie Fan House, Know Nothing Music Show, Vicis Interimo, and coming soon, the Lunar Cast. If you're out here in California and are interested in having some photographs taken showing off your pinup modeling skills, be sure to check out Painted Pinups. PaintedPinups.com is where you can find them. Talk to Kurt or Chad. You can reach them at 562-458-5916. Tonight's movie is From Beyond. This is a 1986 Stuart Gordon, Jeffrey Combs, Brian Usna Barbara Crampton, who else? There's probably half a dozen other people that you might recognize in there. So it brings those folks together again from the Reanimator series. And what's your thoughts on the movie?
This is a movie I've always really enjoyed watching. It's kind of funny because it was one of my favorites back in the day. And when I watch it now, I do have a different outlook on it. It's one of those for me that it's very nostalgic and I love watching it, but I don't want to say it's not as good as I remember it, but I mean, in high school, I loved it. I thought it was like one of the greatest horror movies ever. And I know that's what you think of it.
That's absolutely what I still think about it. When you ask me what I
guess I've had too many favorites come up to the top, and it's pushed that one down a little ways. But yeah, I love watching it, and I am a huge Jeffrey Combs fan. I am in love with Herbert West. So.
Too bad Herbert West is actually in love with his roommate.
Oh man, I know. Dang
but
it.
We'll save that for another time.
Well, that's a whole nother.
This actually is a movie series, and that I wasn't going to talk about simply because I know recently one of the other podcasts out there had spent 30 days doing just nothing but Lovecraft. But I love this movie so much that I just decided I had to go ahead and talk about it too. And there may be a few things that they didn't cover that we're going to cover that would make it worth listening to. First of all, let's get into what exactly the movie is about. And the movie starts out, we have a couple of scientists, and I'm not going to go scene by scene, but just a general overview. You've got Crawford Tillinghast, played by Jeffrey Combs. He is there with his mentor, who is, I believe it's Edward Pretorius. Mm-hmm. And the two of them are working together with on a project that includes a resonator, and what that does is it vibrates at a frequency that stimulates the pineal gland and allows you to see other realities and the things that are just outside of our existence. We get an interesting scene, since basically the majority of what takes place in the first 5 minutes is what is in which is basically included in the story that H.P. Lovecraft wrote.
Right.
When they do these movies and update them for a modern audience, or just to do the story for, to make it a movie, they often have to embellish the work a lot, and they certainly took some liberties. But I'm absolutely not complaining, because a lot of times the short stories, or even some of the longer stories that H.P. Lovecraft writes, are a little bit wordy and a little bit hard to get through. Yes, they are. And they always capture the feeling of them. And a lot of his stories, I think, had at least a lot of the ones that I've read, they are short and they leave you with just a feeling or an idea, or you know what I mean? They're not this big, detailed, complex. Some of them are, but the ones that I really enjoy are the short ones that just basically present you with an idea or a creature or something that's going on. They leave you with... And it leaves you hanging, like you're like, whoa, what was that all about? And what's happening now? I don't know, because he ended the story. Right. So, yeah, it kind of just gets your imagination going. So they're great to take off with on a movie. Yeah. Many of the creatures, by description, are undescribable and things that we can't comprehend. So it's definitely makes it fun and leaves plenty of room for possibilities and potential there. Once this resonator has been turned on, it has some devastating effects that leaves Tillinghast with what they generically just kind of call schizophrenia. They refer to him as being paranoid schizophrenic. We then have Barbara Crampton's character, Catherine McMichaels. She comes in and she decides that with the help of Tillinghast, she can recreate the experiments and find out maybe what happened or what's going on there. She does this, and we can see that she may be the one that's becomes or is obsessed more than Tillinghast. Because
I was going to say she's more like
Pretorius.
Pretorius was.
And
weak-minded.
Well, that's the interesting thing, and that's something that they did get the same with the story, and that is that the character, though the characters are mixed up a little bit, actually in the story, Crawford Tillinghast is being described as a character that is a researcher in the physical and the metaphysical, and is characterized as a man of feeling and action. In the movie, we find that it's Pretorius that is obsessed with feeling and so on. We see that in the fact that he's into S&M and bondage, and though later in the movie Crawford accuses him of being impotent.
I was going to say, you find out he has some other problems, some other life problems.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, one of the things I want to say about Pretorius is actually taken from the Mary Shelley work, Frankenstein, and that is the person that got Henry Frankenstein kind of turned to the dark side. He was the mentor in that story, and so they took that name and kind of. There's a couple other in-jokes in there also. If you notice the address of the place where where the experience were taking place.
Yes.
That's something else to look for when you're watching this movie. Let's see. What do you want to say about the effects? Were the special effects okay for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't, arguably, they didn't hold up 100%, or they did, but they didn't. You know what I mean? It's when you watch an 80s movie.
I was going to say, well, I always judge these things in context of when they came out. I mean, for the 80s, oh, yeah, it's your typical 80s,
stop motion animation there.
Yeah, it's great though.
Yeah.
It's great. No, I love it.
I would be interested to see some of the effects updated in a more recent.
Maybe see a modern version.
Maybe, but it's never gonna. I mean, it's tough because it's never gonna.
Jeffrey Combs could play Pretorius.
Oh my gosh!
I'd hate to see him in that role, though. I really would.
That could be. I don't know. I was gonna say that's one thing that he plays over the top, crazy, just like nobody else.
Yeah.
So
love him.
That's a lot of fun. Yeah. Too bad he's in love with Dan from.
Oh, stop.
From in Reanimate. Anyhow, so that's what you have to say about this movie.
Well, what were you saying about you didn't think the effects were, when you said they didn't hold up 100%, what do you mean by that?
Well, I just mean that when you look at them, you look at them and
they're obviously old.
They're obviously of that time. They're dated of that period. But that's fine. Like I said, if you're ready for that.
So when was the first time you saw this one?
I want to say it was...
were you still in high school? Were you back in Michigan?
I was out here. I was definitely...
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Because I didn't...
You should have been living here hanging out with me in high school.
Oh, my. That would have been fun.
2 peas in a pod.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it wasn't until I got out here. I first got introduced to Reanimator through Stan, and then... like I said, at that point I was obsessed. At that point I had only read the books and short stories of H.P. Lovecraft. So, yeah, I at one time had the entire collection. I spent a couple $100 and bought every. I want to say it was Arkham House, but I'm not sure exactly who the publisher was. But they had the entire series, and they all had continuous artwork. Kind of wraparound artwork.
Yeah.
Entire series that I bought. So I now, honestly, I didn't read them all. I got to admit that because they can be hard to read.
Be tough,
but,
yeah.
I did, like I said, I did own them, and I was working my way through it slowly but surely. But then the LA riots happened, and I left behind a lot of things at that point.
Got out in a hurry, did you?
Yeah, I was living in the jungle at that time, but that's a story for another time. I enjoy the team working together. one of the things Stuart Gordon said when because I watched some of the extras. I didn't gobble them all up. I only watched one of them. I do plan on getting the movie and getting a copy myself now that it's available on DVD. So I want to have something to enjoy at a later date. But I did watch a little bit about the extra snippets that were put in there. If you notice, this wasn't quite the same movie you were watching in junior high.
High school.
High school, rather.
You're right, it wasn't. There was more.
There was more to it, yeah.
A little more blood, a little more gore, a little more violence.
Anything. Well, basically what they did is they had, the MPAA had, of course, made them cut and make changes to get an R release.
Yeah.
And it turns out that there was a whole canister of these things laying around, but they were all work prints. So that meant they had grease pencils, they had smudges, they had those type of things that needed to be fixed on it. But I got to say,
did a great job.
They did an excellent job, because I was watching it saying, I don't remember this. I remember this scene up to this point, but I couldn't, you know what I mean? I didn't see the film jump. I didn't see any of the colors weren't off. I didn't see anything that really told me, hey, this has been added footage and stuff. So it was messing with my mind a little bit.
Yeah, some of those little gross out scenes were lasting a little too long. I was like, wow, I just don't...
Yeah, I don't remember him. Yeah, like I said, we don't want to mess anything up for people that haven't seen this yet.
I mean, and it's not that we're making it sound like, oh my gosh, all this extra gore's been put... I mean, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's basically the scenes that you saw before, just carried a little bit further. Basically, Stuart Gordon said that he felt this movie got its balls back, basically. It was what he had intended to have in the movie to begin with, and he was forced to cut it out. So it just basically is back to what it should have been initially, what you should have gotten out there. What else? What's your score on this movie? You've got the chart there in front of you this time.
I do. I've got your little chart here. Well, if I'm going by the rating scale that you use, 6 sounds kind of average or lowish for this movie, but it's a good movie that I would only suggest probably to movie lovers of this type. You got to be into the kind of funky, campy 80s, like,
Yeah.
Or, if you are an H.P. Lovecraft fan, absolutely. Most people go, who's H.P.? I've heard that. What is that?
Right.
But if you're a fan, and if you love the 80s horror movies, absolutely. For me, it's a very nostalgic movie, and I'll just say, oh yeah, it's great. I love it. But a lot of people might watch it and go, what are you thinking? But, so I would give it a very strong 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yes, I get what you're saying. I do understand. I do understand.
For me, scales, because I want to give it 4s for some things and 9 for other things.
Yeah.
For bringing back the nostalgia of a great time when I used to sit with my friend Cynthia and watch horror movies, and we'd sit there and scream our heads off when he said, "I'm going to kiss you," and we'd go, yeah, I love that. I mean, for that, I want to give the thing a 10, just for giving me that great feeling back, but I can't realistically give it a 10.
Yeah, you can't really share that experience with
Yeah, I'm not a fan of rating scales.
Okay, well, I will give it, I'm going to give it a 9, because...
of course you will.
Well, I can't help it. And here's the main reason why, because it goes beyond the film for me.
Beyond?
From beyond. Yeah, it takes, because it gave me more to think about at that time and stuff. It's funny that Stan referred to it as a documentary, because at this time I was not familiar with quantum mechanics and quantum theory, and believe me, I'm still not that familiar with it either, but I didn't have a name for those things. I was interested in parallel universes and the potential that those things held, but to see this, it gave me other things to think about beyond the movie.
Yeah.
And so that was another reason why it was fun. It's for the...
Well, yeah, it's a great concept, and the thought of these creatures, when the resonators turned on and you can see all of these things, it's like, well, they're there all the time. You just can't see them.
Interact with them.
Yeah, you can't see them. You can't interact with it. They can't see you.
Yeah.
You know, they're just these things that are in our world. We're sharing a space with them, but you just don't know what's really there. So, yeah, that makes it kind of scary.
Yeah. And this is a thing that actually was shared in H.P. Lovecraft's writing. There are other tales such as The Shunned House, Color Out of Space, Dreams in the Witch House. Most recently, we saw the Dreams in the Witch House that was, what was that, Masters of Horror or something?
Oh, yeah.
And that dealt with, you know, planes of existence being right near each other, and it's just a matter of finding the right mathematical formula for things to cross over. So it was something that H.P. Lovecraft explored, and that, you know what I mean, that seed was planted in my head way back when and gave me a lot to think about in the meantime. So that's another reason why I rate the movie so high.
Yeah.
But at this rate, I'm going to go ahead and probably cut this one, and we're going to try to get a 30-minute episode here. Check out lowriderpimps.com. Lowrider Pimps, where you'll find beautiful lowriders and beautiful women, both treated with class. myspace.com/lowriderpimps, or use the Lowrider Pimps hotline, 213-884-4073. Garbage in, garbage out. Sounds like we don't really have too much to share this time.
I don't.
Well, I've got plenty, so I'll just take all the time to myself.
Cool.
Actually, I'm going to have a few things to ask you, so get ready to be put on the spot.
Okay.
What do you think of Black Snake Moan? You'd forgotten already we watched that this week. Huh?
I almost did forget about that. No, I did forget. I really liked it, actually.
I did too. I liked it a lot more. I didn't know what I was in for.
Why are you laughing?
Because I had no idea the only explanation I got of what that movie was is Christina Ricci plays a sex addict and Samuel L. Jackson is a crazy man that chains her up and tries to treat her like he's his dad, her dad.
Where did you hear that?
Heck if I know. And this was way back when it first came out. I don't think people knew what to make of it. It's one of those independent films, and it was, who's the audience for it? I'm not sure. I enjoyed it. You enjoyed it.
Me? If it has the same kind of feeling as like Monsters Ball, which I love also. It's a broken people movie. You know what I mean? Broken people finding each other and helping to lift each other up a little bit and get back on the right path.
That sounds good. Yeah, I like that explanation. So that's one of the things that we did this week. Speaking of broken people, we also watched Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, my gosh. I love that movie. Yeah,
that is a tremendous flick, I think. It's not for everybody. I don't think one of the people that watched it with us wasn't really into it per se.
No, he was like, that was all right. Yeah, I think it was a little slow and boring for him.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not big on, like, real-life dramas type, I'm all about sci-fi, fantasy, horror, adventure. Don't drop me in the middle of a drama. You know what I mean? I live in real life and real world. I don't want to,
movies are going to be an escape. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but however, I'm just such a sucker for any kind of, we're calling them broken people movies. What is that?
That's good. I think we've got our own little click there.
Term here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just watching people's struggles and watching them interact and just try to, well, dang, is that why I'm into psychology? Maybe.
Maybe so. Maybe we just saw something right there. And considering who the people are, the actors bring a lot to it. And this has Toni Collette. It has Steve Carell. It has Abigail. I can't think of her name, the little girl. The brother, her older brother, he does a great job. And Greg Kinnear. Everybody in that cast.
Yeah, I mean, they got the cast so perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many things came together perfect for that movie.
And was it Alan Arkin that plays the grandfather?
Mm-hmm.
He finally won did he win an Oscar for that performance?
He did.
Yeah, crazy.
After
years and years and years.
All these years, yes, he finally got an Oscar, and yeah, he's pretty amazing in that movie.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, I don't, it's always disappointing because like I'll always say, oh my gosh, it's a great movie. I love it. It's like in my top, I don't know. It's in my top 25, absolutely. Top 20 maybe even. And I think a lot of people would just watch it and go, what a boring little movie. What do you see in that thing?
Yeah.
You know, but it's just, I don't know, you have to like to, I don't know, I'm grasping here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm a little tired this evening.
I can tell. All right. We'll move on.
Let's move on.
The other thing that I listened to was I listened to some podcasts this week, and I was kind of working my way through some of the Penny Cult podcasts, and I got to say I found a few of them that were really entertaining and that I enjoyed for various reasons. One of them was a movie fan. They just changed their name. I hope I get this right for them. The Movie Fancast. They talked about the movie Repo with Forrest Whitaker and Jude Law, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they gave their thoughts on that. That was kind of interesting.
I haven't heard anything yet about it. I mean, I've heard all about it. I haven't heard anyone who knows anything about it.
Well, these guys saw it. They talked about it, and I don't want to say what, go to their podcast, enjoy what they have to say about it. I think they give you...
You'll have to tell me
I'll
afterwards.
talk about it afterwards and stuff. Yeah, I can, I'll bite my tongue. I'm not going to say anymore. Yeah, we'll talk
I love Jude Law, so I know a lot of people are kind of over him.
Mm-hmm.
He was so hot for a while, but not so much anymore. I think people are getting tired of him, but I still love him. And
yeah, well, we'll talk about it in a minute. Fan Kids, the Fan Kids podcast. Interesting. We got a couple of little guys, both under the age of, I want to say like 10, about the age of 10, 9 or 10. I'm not sure. But anyhow, they give their opinion that their parents have shared with them. Wait, that doesn't sound right at all. I'm sure they have their own opinions, but their parents had shared with them things like the Beatles. So they give their opinion on the Beatles, and it's interesting to hear, these kids talk about the fact that they didn't really care for the Beatles until they got Beatles Rock Band and started playing it and listening to the music. They actually watch one of the Yellow Submarine video, I believe.
Yeah.
Online.
Is a movie?
No, there's actually a YouTube video. I'll need to find it. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes if I can find it. But it uses clips from the movie.
Okay.
And both of them screaming "Blue Meanie" at the same. Just really fun stuff. And another thing, I know their dad has been deployed overseas, and I want to salute him for being out there and serving our country here. No matter what your politics is and whether you believe, we should be over there or not, you need to support the troops because they're out there, fighting for everybody else. So that's one other thing that I'd like to add. Another thing was I started to call it Disney Indiana. It's not actually Disney Indiana. It was Warner Indiana this time. And there's a couple there that live in the Midwest. They're huge fans of the Disney parks and Six Flags too. I think that's where their next trip is. But they took some time to talk about and play songs from the Disney, and in this case the Warner Brother cartoons, and they listed their top 5 and played those and just played all the music. And it's funny how just 2 or 3 bars of a song and it can bring back everything.
Your entire childhood, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. So definitely check those folks out.
That's great.
So anyhow, we're going to cut it off here, and thanks for joining us. Have a good one.